Hello and welcome to Untalented. Today's a bit of a different one to usual. Our usual setup, as you know, we usually get some sort of expert guest on. Today we don't have any experts. We claim to be experts, but I have brought in the wonderful Joe Standing. Joe, say hello.
Good morning, everybody. Hello.
Joe works with me on the product team. Obviously, anyone who does know, we specialise in product design, UX and UI and digital. I thought this might be helpful, this session, because we speak to a lot of people, don't we, Joe? Like lots of all levels of people, and they ask us some really, really interesting questions and want a lot of advice. And I thought it might be good to share some of those answers in this session.
I think it'd be good.
Yeah.
A lot of insight.
A lot of insight. I like to think so. Or it could be useless.
We'll just be waffling for an hour.
Could be waffling, but you might still enjoy it. Before we do kick off, Joe, tell us a bit about your experience.
My experience. What do you want to know from the start, from the beginning, design-wise?
I think what's going to be relevant, the design stuff.
I mean, so I've got 2 degrees. Big up me, yeah. I got a master's in industrial design from Central St Martin's and a BA in product design, but physical products, not UX and UI. So yeah, I've spent, I don't know, like 7 years studying that, and then prior to that was graphic design. So I've always been creative, I guess.
Love that.
And now I'm sat here doing recruitment into product design, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I have, people might know, I've got a similar background to Joe, just a degree in industrial and product design. So the stuff that we picked up there was relevant to an extent. I think it might be quite useful to hear some of our experiences as well with some of these questions that people asked. But first, we're going to start with, sorry, I look like Dappy in that photo. Ian. I just realised I do look like Dappy, and I'm sorry about that.
Sean does want to be a rapper.
Yeah, I really do. But first, we're going to start with a this or that.
Oh.
Now, Joe doesn't know what size these could be. It's just quick fire. Let's go.
Let's go.
Ready? UX or UI?
UI.
Whoa.
Straight.
That was quick. Great app or a great website?
Website.
Favorite app? I know this isn't one, but...
Duolingo.
Oh.
Love it.
Web3 or AI?
AI. Yeah.
University or straight to work?
Straight to work.
Figma or Lightroom?
Figma.
I don't know who did this or that question, but that one doesn't really make sense. I'll be chatting to you afterwards. Anyway, let's kick off. I want to dive right in, and I think the biggest question that we get a lot from sort of junior designers, and even earlier on than that, before uni, and you have that sort of choice, people are thinking, is it worth it? You know, what do I get from it? And what do I learn? I think like what I want to know from Joe, and I'll answer as well, is do you think your degree was a help or a hindrance to you getting a design job?
I've actually got a bit of a more complex answer, but I would say it was probably a hindrance.
Okay.
But there was times when I was doing freelance work where it helped.
Interesting.
But I think it only helped because the people that I did work for didn't know anything about design. So if you wave a credential in front of them and say, I've got X amount of years certified training, if you like, they're like, yeah, do me some work.
That's a really good point, and I actually didn't think of that. Sometimes it's like the whole uniform conformity thing, isn't it? Where I've got this shiny badge that shows that I can do this, so hire me or let me do this for you. And to an extent, it's right. You know, you've learned so much in those 3 or 4 years or whatever you've done, and even longer for you with your masters. What about? I want to know. Full-time work. What was the struggle? Why was it a hindrance, do you think?
I think because you go to certain places and taught certain things. So when I did my BA, it was more like furniture design or like furnishings.
Okay.
So like lamps or these microphones or whatever it might be, and small electronics. So going into a job, at least applying for a job after that, was you could only go a certain route. So you could either go into furniture design or you could go into working for like a big Korean tech company like Samsung, for example, who produce amazing work, but it's very hard to get into. And I think because I went to uni in the north of England for my BA, there wasn't very much going on in design up there at that time anyway. Now it's changed. So the people that were our course leaders, they didn't really give us any kind of options kind of when we were finishing. And they knew that I was from the south, so they would say to me, oh, you're going to be in the perfect location to go out. But it was never kind of like any help on look here, look there kind of thing. It was just, well, everything's happening in London kind of thing.
Yeah, I felt like very similar to that. And, you know, I guess I can say the uni. You can always bleep out if we need, but I went to Loughborough. And there was certain consultancies and not even agencies, sorry, just consultancies and different types of businesses that were very obvious, and they were the only ones that it felt like Loughborough represented almost.
Layer design.
Yeah, right? And Dyson was always the big one. Like, okay, Dyson is an amazing business and brand, and industrial design side of things, wow, very, very impressive.
Amazing, beautiful work.
But what if I don't like Hoovers? Which I'm not the biggest fan, Joe. Like,
see, and this was my kind of, I guess, when I come to the end of doing my BA, I was a bit sick of doing like orthographic drawings and working out exploded views or sat on. We didn't use Rhino, we used Fusion 360. Our uni was sponsored by Fusion. Okay. So we used Fusion. It's an amazing software, but I was so sick of using it. And that's why I moved into doing my master's, because I thought, you know, I'm going to go to CSM. It's an art school. I'm going to get a new perspective. It's in the south, so I get to go home. And it's best in the world. It was voted the best in the world. So it was like a business decision to go there, right, to kind of see what I could do, what was going on. And it taught me so much more and kind of opened doors to different places. But I think if you don't want to pay for that, it is super expensive, and it financially ruins me by doing it, then don't do it. I think you can go. I mean, like, if we look back at people, I don't know, like the guy that designed the Lamborghini Moira, he never went to university. He just went up to Maranello, went into working for Lamborghini, and he designed probably their most famous car at the age of 26, just from working there in the design department. We should do that.
I think taking it all in, and, you know, the 4 years that I did there, I learned so much at uni, and like learning the tools and the skills to be able to design was great, and I think invaluable, and I recommend anyone to do it for that. But also there's the risk of being this sort of, especially in our course, it felt like a jack of all trades and a master of none, kind of. And I know that's a little bit savage, but the reason I say that is because you then come out of uni not being a specialist really in anything. True. You're just trying to get your foot in the door with all these different types of places. Whereas I think university should, maybe, whether it's final year or whatever, they should start to like really hone in on what you feel like you're best at and what you want to do more of, and what you want to do less of. So I think for me, that was a big tell, and you know, designers I speak to now are saying the same thing. It's like, I don't know who exists because I'm doing all of these things and it could apply to so many places, but they don't know who an amazing digital agency is in London, a product design specific agency in London, or in the north, or wherever. And
I think this is the trouble, because when you're at these places, I mean, when I did my master's, we were kind of told of places that were doing good stuff, but it was more stripped back, and it wasn't just that we were all designing beautiful things. I mean, we were, because we're good designers, but it was more that we were given the option of what did we want to specialise in. So I was looking at like speculative design, so people like Dunham Raby, who basically look into the future and design problems rather than solutions about what the future could hold. and then from that you're told, you know, like I didn't know that Dun & Bradstreet exist until I started undertaking this project. And then people were doing more kind of like physical products. So they were told about Kickerland, this Scandinavian kind of weird homeware brandy thing. So I think there needs to be like a bigger push on, if you're going to go to university, definitely have like a bank of people that at least interest you. And we always ask that, right? In our calls, we always ask, who are you jealous of? Who's doing work that you're jealous of? Where maybe it's like AI with Meta, or it's other social media platforms, or it's actual agencies, right, that are producing really good work. People like Neverland, who are doing amazing websites, or Vovi, or whoever it might be. But I think that also falls on us. I mean, like I'm building out the product design map at the moment of cool agencies that we like in the UK and further afield. And Design Truth are doing the same with Brad Harper, I think his name is. And those are like the only two kind of assets that the UK have at the moment.
Yeah.
We need more of it. We need, if you're going to go to university, these institutions need to have like a catalogue of places. We're going to teach you stuff, but this is the places that are doing cool stuff as well.
Definitely.
It's just not that.
Segue time. Nice, smooth segue into... I'm keen to know from you, Joe Standing, that as a junior designer, whether you've gone to university or not, how are you getting your foot in this crazy industry? You've
got to be like a sledgehammer smashing in doors. You've just got to go for it. There's so much competition. And how, I guess the big question is, it's not like how do you get into these places, but how do you win once you're in these places? Because it's easy to get in. I mean, from our point of view, it's easy because we do it every day. We drop a head of design an email, or we connect with them on LinkedIn. We find their work, and that's the way to get in. Is just hammer them by emailing them, or even turn up at their offices. You know where their offices are. Turn up, print out your portfolio, hand it to the person at the desk, and if you get no reply, go back a week later. Hand a new portfolio. I appreciate cost of living crisis. Paper isn't cheap. Email them your portfolio. It doesn't cost anything. But you need to set yourself apart. You need to find your niche. What are you really excited about? I remember when I started uni, someone wanted to work for Heineken, so they printed their CV onto a label, stuck it on a Heineken bottle, and sent it to the head office, and they got a job. They got a job for it. Do stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so. I think like I try and... I think I've answered this before on a previous podcast, but I like to boil it down into like a few things. And one, definitely like what you were saying there, along the lines of getting mentors. But mentors can be so unrelated to getting a job at that place, wherever they are. Just taking interest in a head of design, a senior designer, whoever it might be, who just does great work in your opinion, and telling them that and asking for advice. I think showing vulnerability is such a massive thing that we don't do enough of.
Sure.
And as a junior designer, do more. Like show that, yes, it's a struggle, but know your talent and what you can do, and just work with that mentor, whether it's meeting them, chatting to them on Zoom once a month, you know, just getting their advice on what they can do to improve, and feedback on their portfolios or new projects. Also bear in mind that if you haven't got a job, you're not doing live projects. So try conceptual projects. Try things that are whatever you're interested in. You know, it might be, I don't know, my favorite brand, let's say Amy Leon Dore, because I'm wearing it right now. What about producing some new website for them, or an app, or on Figma, or a podcast that they want to release in collaboration with someone else? Try something that's different, that you're passionate about, because that will you'll start to enjoy that more and more, and you'll innovate and you'll try all these different things and a bit quirky ideas, and people notice that. People recognize that. They do.
I mean, I spoke to a midweight designer, I don't know, a couple of weeks back, and he, after finishing uni, he created or redesigned the landing page for I can't remember who it was, one of the like housing websites. just because he thought it needed, redesigning, banged it on Behance, and then a couple of weeks later, he got an email from this guy saying, "I found your work online. Like, let's have a chat." And it turned out this guy that emailed him had started up a startup that was a direct competitor to this housing website, and this guy had literally gone online and searched like Zoopla landing pages on Behance or online, come across this guy's design, liked it, and he hires him because he needed a UI designer, and this guy just randomly in his own time designed a new landing page.
Love that. And I think and don't get me wrong, it's not always that easy, is it?
No,
I think people think that I've got this website, I'm so nervous to put it out, and they put it out and expect millions of people to go straight to it.
Yeah, I fell into that trap. When I started my own website, I put my work on it and did some conceptual work, and I thought I'll post it everywhere. No one emailed me. Not a single person dropped me an email being like the work.
I think but part of the reason, again, as a junior designer, what it is worth knowing to get your foot in the industry, I'd say a final point is having an idea of who exists.
Definitely.
Who is out there that I could work with and enjoy working with.
You should be a sponge.
Absolutely. And whether that is working with people like us or getting mentors or just going on different platforms that you get inspiration from. Awards is a perfect example. FWA, these types of really high quality digital website, platforms showcasing awesome work. Look on places like those. Yeah. A lot of them are quite small, nice, lean agencies that you could just reach out, get in touch with and message or send your portfolio over to just for feedback. You don't need to ask for a job. It doesn't need to be that transactional. Just try and build a relationship with someone.
Yeah. And it's good to have relations within the industry. And if you are given opportunities and you don't think you want to do that in the long run, say for instance you're given, I don't know, a internship to work at a design company that specialises in making toys. That doesn't interest you, still take it, still go for it. You're not wasting your time. The work might not interest you, but you'll learn much more than you think you will.
100%. That conversation, just picking up what that person says in that conversation is key. Great. I have got a question for you, Joe, that a lot of people, a little bit controversial. I think people it's a bit of a taboo topic in product design specifically. It's the whole UX and UI or hybrid product design that do both UX and UI in the end-to-end process. Yeah. So I want to know from you, first of all, does it work? But I guess, would you rather have, this might be a better question, would you rather have 30 product designers working in a team or 15 UX designers and 15 UI designers?
I'd rather have split 15 UX, 15 UI.
Why?
I think it's good to know the end-to-end process and be able to do it. But I mean, the only analogy I have, is that a lot of the time, if you look at artists, like fine artists, a lot of them might dabble in loads of different mixed media, or they might do oil paintings or then whatever. But most of the time, they'll specialize in one particular area and they'll become a master at it. And I think, if you look at the Japanese culture, where people in Japan, they will do they might not do one job, but in 50 years ago, people would do one singular job for their whole life. So it might be that they make, I don't know, katanas, or they make knives or whatever it is, and they would just do that. And they will spend, I think, to become a master at it in Japanese culture, you have to do it for 10 years. And once you've spent that 10 years doing it, you then become a master. And I think in Western culture, we're expected to kind of know everything and be an expert at absolutely everything. But I think that diminishes the quality. I think if you just focus in on one particular area, if you're mad at being a UX designer, you will produce amazing work because you're just putting all your effort into it. I think obviously then that goes on to the research part of it. But then, like, if you look at like proper famous graphic designers, they only do graphic design. Their work is like so beautiful, and I think a UI designer should really concentrate on like doing interfaces, because we always scream about like collaborative working, but if you're got two different disciplines, like you should be able to collaborate. You should know both processes.
Yeah, and I think a UX specialist and a UI specialist, it takes very different types of people.
Yeah.
You know, in my opinion, again, I think that we grow up as humans as kind of leaning on one side or the other. One more strategic, analytical, the other more creative and art focused, art centric.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to be both. I think it's absolutely possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
But being an expert in things that are quite different to each other is really hard. And getting 30 of those in one business is extremely hard.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in hiring specialists as well, and getting people to do what they feel they are, one, most passionate about, and two, so good at. And yeah, so I'd agree. I think a split of UX and UI designers, ultimately the work, I believe, and the output will be a lot higher quality.
Yeah, I agree. And I think from looking at people, I mean, at the moment we're hiring for a UX designer. So I'm just looking at UX portfolios, and their UX process is always so much more in depth, and there's a much clearer kind of path of how they got to where they ended up compared to someone that's end to end, because you still got the same time frame, but if you're end to end, you've got to do both sides of the process. Whereas if you're only on one side, you've got all of that same time to really nail in on one side of the process, whether it be UX or UI.
And that's more time to innovate, right? I think like
100%.
Now we're in a world that there is so much stuff. There's just stuff everywhere.
Too much stuff.
Yeah, and like, you know, there are a lot of digital agencies, for example, competing with each other on very similar work, like e-commerce, for example. E-commerce platforms all coming to digital agencies for quite a similar brief.
Yeah.
And it takes really talented people in those agencies to actually design something very different that makes as much sense and is as, you know, this is not a word, but ergonomically user experienced.
Yeah,
as
like
possible. You know, and so yeah, I think like now is a better time than any to hire specialists.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll end it there. I think, yeah, we've kind of...
We can waffle all day about that particular
absolutely,
thing.
we could.
We always go on about it.
I wanted to ask you, and I know I'm asking you loads of questions here, Joe, but you mentioned earlier in the this or that thing that you preferred AI to Web3 right now.
Ooh.
Why? What? Because...
it's scary and exciting, isn't it?
It is. I think before you do start, it's Web3. I love the whole idea, and I love the sort of how like and NFTs, like digital artwork, and I do really see that being this thing that we all are so used to.
It's got mad potential.
Yeah, but then it's also so volatile at the moment and just flopping.
It's just run by fraudsters.
Yeah?
Yeah, don't call me out. But it's run by fraudsters. I mean, like, come on, look, a lot of, what is it, FTX exchange? Like the billions that were just disappeared or whatever. And now that, I don't know, 29-year-old is off to jail. I mean, that's not all Web3, crypto,
Absolutely,
whatever you want to call it. But there does seem that at the moment, there's more bad players than there are good players.
That might be because we haven't fully understood where the sort of the value is and the need for that is in terms of the purpose. And look, there probably are these businesses growing that we don't know about yet that are very purpose driven within that Web3 and an NFT space. But you're right, they're being overlooked by these, like you say, fraudsters who are doing pyramid schemes.
Yeah, they're taking advantage
of the Web3
of it.
space.
And I think that's that's really sad, because it seems like the only space at the moment, other than being an actual artist, where you can create creatively free work. And what do I mean by that is that a lot of the Web3 or NFT kind of marketplaces, even like the new Gucci Vault website, that kind of they're in partnership not with Rarify, but I can't remember their name, something rare, something that visually, like it's incredible, it's beautiful, and that work within Web3 is like visually it's absolutely amazing, and you just can't have that on Waitrose website, for example. You just can't, because you're selling to people that are between the ages, I don't know, like it's the 95th percentile, right? So it's like people from 80 right down to, I don't know, 16. Whereas Web3 is going after a certain audience that are more visually minded and open to, I don't know, like a buy button just floating randomly.
Yeah, with someone trying to catch it, like with the mouse. You need to be young and pretty agile, don't you?
Can't have arthritis.
Oh God, yeah. So, but back to the sort of Web3 versus AI.
Yeah.
Why AI? Why is it scary? Why is it useful in design?
So I think maybe I'll start with the scary stuff first. Get that out of the way. So I spoke with on separate occasions, two like creative directors that work in advertising, and they said they've both been using the Chat GPT to like get it to create a brief for them. So you have to train it slightly, and you get them to create a brief of this thing, and then they whack it in like Mid-Journey or DALL-E 2. It creates these wacky, amazing images. Is that making people redundant? Will it make people redundant?
Yeah.
It's such like an old man kind of like thought. It's like, it's gonna take people's jobs away. I guess it was the same as when like self-service checkouts came out, and they're like, it's gonna get rid of people in Tesco's.
Exactly. I think you're right. Does it make people redundant, or is it an extension? Does it become an extension of that?
I hope it
person?
becomes an extension.
And at the moment, it feels like an extension. Like Mid-Journey, for example, everyone's talking about it. It almost feels like old news now, Mid-Journey. But I still can't get my head around how amazing that piece of software is.
It's incredible.
And I don't know. I know AI is building a personality now. Like emotion, it has emotion, which is, I'm calling it it. I think that's right. It might be a he or she or a they at some point. But AI is building a personality, but I don't know if it will ever be at the same level as a human making decisions with emotion and collaborating with others. I don't know.
I think I'm literally name dropping like all the time throughout this podcast. So I'm sorry.
Sorry.
But I spoke with the head of AI at Meta.
Wow.
Unfortunately, he was made redundant along with 11,000 other people, which was pretty sad. And he was working on this project at the time where you could basically have like a golf lesson. He didn't explicitly say it was Tiger Woods, but I can only assume it was, with Tiger Woods through an AI, through a headset, right? But they were also creating this thing where you would literally hold a golf club and be able to swing it, and the virtual reality Tiger Woods would tell you that you're swinging wrong.
What?
Yeah. So it like
the Wii on steroids.
Yeah, the Wii on steroids. So it'd be like, oh, you're holding the wrong, or you're not swinging it hard enough, or like, but even like your posture's not right. Yeah. Your feet aren't. I mean, I don't play golf. Don't know much about golf, so I don't know like what's right and what's wrong. But yeah, apparently this is what they're working on. They were, but even like basketball and things like that. And then
you do play a lot of.
Yeah.
Sorry.
just there, like.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
But so like this is coming. He said it's like 10 years off. Maybe that's why, unfortunately, he was made redundant.
Yeah.
Because Mark Zuckerberg's not seeing the return straight away. So that's kind of like the scary side. Like, is it going to make coaches and things redundant? But then the exciting side is stuff like Midjourney and DALL-E 2, ChatGPT. Also on Duolingo, they've got AI. So it's like you'll do your lesson, and it will basically pick up on where you're like stagnating. If you're like stuck on a question for a while, picks up on that, picks up on words that you've spelt wrong, or all of this kind of things, and it gives you a tailored like training program.
See, this is the thing. I'm sure like a lot of brands would answer back at us, or tech companies answer back at us and saying, we've been doing AI for years.
Yeah.
Mate. Like, you know, our machine learning teams and personalization teams have been running for so long, but we didn't know about that. Like that's like in the subconscious.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like back end development.
Things are just
like
happening.
No one cares about it because they don't see it.
Exactly. But there are these things that it's almost like D2C AI. Like you can interact with this AI by literally typing in your keyboard and getting a result back in 10 seconds or whatever it is. So I think that's why I wanted to highlight that now, because it's becoming even more powerful. And
I think people hopefully do come back at us and say we've been using AI for ages, and we know you have, but I feel like AI has like it's gone over the garden wall now. So before, like when you walk past someone's house, like you don't necessarily see what's at the very bottom of the garden wall because you can't you can't see it. And now it's stepped, or maybe it steps on top of the garden wall, and DALL-E 2 and Midjourney and ChatGPT are just here like, hey, we're like AI. And then you've got like back end development that, you know, like learning AI that's always been there. Yeah. I just hope it doesn't turn into like WALL-E 2. WALL-E 2? No, WALL-E, the film.
Whoa, they did a second one.
Maybe there is a second one. Yeah. Disney, if you're watching.
Yeah, WALL-E 2.
I've got the script for that.
Joe, it's 2023.
Hell yeah, it is.
Well, we're filming this in January, so we can still talk about the new year. What are your sort of predictions for this year? What do you see happening within design? What's potentially going to be groundbreaking or potentially demoralizing?
I think there's going to be a lot happening. I think the Web3 thing, I think, is going to get bigger. I think I'm hoping the metaverse tails off and no one really bothers with that. I think it's a waste of time. You'll probably prove me wrong in 10 years. AI, I think, again, is going to become more prevalent. But I think I'm hoping there's going to be like a shift where people are just wanting to discover young talent and like really go after it. And I'm hoping there's going to be more kind of like junior roles, because people are producing amazing work. Not just in the UK either. Like we see a lot of good work, especially from like Prague.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff coming out of like Eastern Europe that's amazing. So yeah, I hope like with the advent of remote working, I hope that like really bolsters itself up even further, and remote working internationally can take hold, and like this international community can just like fall down onto the design world, and we can get some really good work going.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all your points, but I think the junior hiring kind of more junior talent, I hope that is the case. I also worry that businesses could get safer. I think it could go two ways during this R-word recession that's impending and happening and whatever you want to call it. I think agencies could go two ways. They could go down the safe route, do what we've always been known for, hire the same people, keep creating the same work. Fine, that's fine for some places. I'd like to think there's this big portion of other places, agencies and brands, that are thinking this is the time to take a risk and stand out and do things differently, not only in the work, but the way they run that business. You know, the people they hire. I think it's such a good time to bring in different thinkers to produce work that no one else is doing. And like you said, that doesn't need to come from London. You know, that could come from all over the world. Whether that is a remote setup or not, that's up to them. But I think the talent that you can access in some of these different cities is just extraordinary, you know.
And I think it goes back to like one of the things why we're here as a company, of like same faces, same places. And you'll never get innovation if you're just moving senior product designer from here to here, then from here to here, then from here to here. Like, bring in a couple of juniors, bring in some midweights, bring in someone that's like from the far-flung depths of the world. They're doing amazing work, and visas and things are just an absolute mess, but they're doing amazing work. What's more important? Pushing out amazing work, winning some awards, hiring someone that's from somewhere completely different, that has different experiences, will have a different viewpoint, different inspirations, that can bring in different work, or hiring someone that you've probably bumped into before.
Yeah.
Like, there's cool work to be done.
Yeah.
But you need cool people.
Definitely. And look, that's going to take, wait for it, grit. Shout out, unknown value, number 6. 5. 6? One of them. Grit. I think it's going to take
number one.
Yeah, number 1. It's going to take places to like, it's going to probably be a bit scary. They might not, it might be a bit uncomfortable, but the harder you work and the more you sort of like strive to be different to your competitors and go a bit further than the others, then I think you're in such a good place.
Yeah. The world revolves around people making investments. Financially, I mean, like, financial investments is obviously probably the number one. But number 2 is you can invest in anything. Invest in a designer. Pay for their visa. Pay for them to move to the UK. You've got the money agencies, do it. And you can hire someone that's amazing. Win, lose or draw.
Love that. I want to kind of finish with I want to do one more question, Ian. Stop looking at me. I want to do one more question. And I know we've rambled on a lot today. I hope this has been helpful for people out there. But Joe, I want to put a scenario out there that there is a designer, it could be sort of senior level at an agency right now, and they're kind of happy, like the work's okay, the people are okay, the culture's pretty like good, but is that enough to consider a move?
Yeah, it is. I think if you ask my parents, I'd say no. They'd be like, oh, like, you enjoy it, you get paid well, you've got a happy life. But the new generation of looking at things, I think, from my point of view, and from people that I speak to, is that like, you want to feel really fulfilled. You spend so much time at work. I appreciate for some designers it isn't work, it's their pure passion, and that's amazing. But I bet you if you ask designers that are doing their pure passion, they'll work under their own name, maybe. I mean, although I'm not a big fan, and he's sadly passed, but Virgil Abloh, like, he was doing amazing stuff, and that was his pure passion of what he was doing. So I think if you're working in an agency and it's like comfortable, I think if you describe your job as comfortable at all, you shouldn't be there. Like, you just shouldn't. Like, your job shouldn't be comfortable. It should pay you well, so you're comfortable living, and you're not having to worry about living. But your work and your workplace should be pushing you all the time. It should be making you a better designer. It should fulfilling. I think if you describe it as fulfilling and adventurous, you're probably in the right place.
I agree. I think settling for okay, I don't think that's... there's time for that.
Who wants okay? When you go and buy a car, you don't... I mean, I'm a massive car guy, and I always use cars as an analogy. But like, if I went to buy a car, and I was like, yeah, this one's okay, I wouldn't...
Stick with your Fiat Punto or whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
like, you want a car as a car guy that excites you. Surely as a designer, you want a role, position that excites you, not that it's just paying the bills and means that on the weekend you can go and buy a nice coffee or something.
I do love coffee. Right, Joe, that is probably enough. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you for having me. It was brilliant.
Yeah. We'll do more of these for sure. Yeah. Hopefully it's helpful for everyone listening. So and what's that?
To our waffle.
To our waffle,
to my
yeah,
waffle.
And appreciate it. And this is a wrap, and goodbye and good night, and have fun.